Out front next, breaking news. The U.S. confirming tonight that a plane filled with $400 million in cash was, quote, leveraged to get American prisoners released. Was it ransom? I'll ask my guest, State Department spokesman John Kirby. Plus, more breaking news. Brazilian officials say American swimmer Ryan Lochte lied about being robbed at gunpoint. But tonight, yet another side of the story. And Donald Trump is about to take the stage, his first major speech since his campaign shakeup. We'll bring it to you live. Let's go out front. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kate Baldwin in for Aaron Burnett. Out front tonight, breaking news. The State Department tonight confirming that the United States used a plane loaded with $400 million in cash as, quote, leverage to ensure the release of American prisoners held in Iran. The cargo plane was with the cash, remained on the tarmac, and was not cleared for takeoff until the Americans were free. Still, the administration is insisting tonight that the money was not ransom. But that is exactly what Donald Trump and many Republican lawmakers call it. Donald Trump, he is about to take the stage moments from now, rallying supporters in North Carolina. It will be his first major event since shaking up his campaign staff. His campaign was quick to jump on the news of this Iran leverage and tie it to his opponent, releasing this statement in part by helping, they say, put together a deal that ultimately sent $400 million to Iran that was likely used to fund terrorism. Clinton has proven herself unfit to be president of the United States. Again, we're looking at live pictures of Trump's rally in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're going to bring it to you live when it begins. But first, let us start with Michelle Kaczynski in Martha's Vineyard, where President Obama is on vacation. Michelle, the White House clearly aware the optics are not good in this case. So what are they saying tonight of this Iran deal?
Yeah, well, they don't want to say that. They don't want to say that the optics aren't good here. They want to stand behind what they originally said, at least as much as possible. But the explanations around this have changed just a little bit in the wording. And that's been interesting, and that's been ripe for Republicans to jump on it, especially given the timing so close to the election. So the White House put out a statement very similar to how this really all started. There was some additional detail reported, and then the State Department responded by saying, this was really, it wasn't a ransom, because that's against U.S. policy. This was leverage. We wanted to make sure that the Iranians would release those prisoners, so we held this payment to make sure they were going to be released, and then we paid them this money. What's made it more difficult for the administration it's just how confusing this is in the first place. I mean, this was money that was going to be paid to the Iranians. It was owed to them from decades ago, a deal that was never completed for arms. The U.S. Never gave them those arms. This was just before the Iranian Revolution. So they say this was separate from the deal to release the prisoners. And initially, when we asked the White House, would those prisoners have been released if that money was not on that plane on that day, essentially functioning as a ransom, as Iran has been calling it? The White House didn't have a response. Then when that same question was asked to the State Department, they said, yes, those prisoners would have been released regardless of whether that money was on that plane. But now the State Department is giving more information and saying, well, we held up that payment to make sure they were released. So they're still not saying that this was ransom or even that it functioned as a ransom. They still say that these were separate things that each would have happened, but they wanted to make sure that the prisoners were released, so they paid that money at that time, Kate.
Using all the leverage that they have, but not surprisingly, Republicans see it very differently and are jumping all over it now. Michelle, thank you very much. That's for that kind of angle of it. Let's go to Jason Carroll. He's live at the Donald Trump rally in Charlotte. Jason, Trump has been hugely critical of the Iran deal. And we heard the statement that he put out, assume he's going to hit the same thing tonight.
Yes, one would. Reasons. First of all,
you can absolutely assume that. Jason Carroll, thank you so much. And out front now, spokesman for the State Department, John Kirby. John, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Today, you described it as leverage. The question also to you today, though, was you wouldn't give Iran the money until they released the prisoners, and you said correct. That seems pretty close to the definition of ransom. How is it not?
Well, it's not ransom for many reasons. First of all, this was Iran's money. It was money that was awarded to them by the Hague Tribunal. And it was a process that had been working independently for many months prior to that. Number two, the way I think ransom works is you have to pay first, and then you get your hostages back, and that's not what happened here. We got our American citizens out first, and then, because we wanted to make sure we had the leverage to get them out safely, then the $400 million that was Iran's was released to them. But look, I mean, this was really something that happened over many, many months, and it did kind of come together simultaneously, and we felt like we had to take advantage of the timing here to make sure that we got our American citizens out safely, and that was always the top priority. The other thing I'd say, Kate, is that very little of this story is new. The president himself, when we got the Americans back, came out and publicly talked about how these processes came together and how we tried to take advantage of them.
But to your point, if it wasn't ransom, it was announced in January, we all know that. It was cash owed to Iran and the deal gone bad during the overthrow of the Shah. Did it become a ransom payment when you feared, as you said, that the Americans wouldn't be released if you let that money enter Iran?
No, again, I think, the way the ransom works is you pay first and then you get your hostages. That didn't happen. But again, this was money that was theirs. And this was, when it all came together, we knew that this would help us with a little bit of leverage. And actually, we wanted maximum leverage, and we felt that this would assist us. You know, when people talk about a quid pro quo here, the only real quid pro quo with respect to the money was the Hague Tribunal's decision that this money was owed to Iran, and so that money was then given to Iran.
But no matter if
them as a
money
result
was
of the Hague
changed
Tribunal.
first, and then the hostages were handed over, I think if you're two people staring each other down, whoever steps first, it doesn't really matter. The fact that it was exchanged, it was held and exchanged, and that's how it had to happen for fear you weren't going to get the result that you wanted to get, that sounds like ransom to a layman.
I can understand why people might think that, and people are obviously entitled to have those views and those opinions. But the facts are clear. The fact was that this was Iranian money that had been awarded to them by the Hague Tribunal. The fact is that in a separate process, we've been negotiating for the return of our Americans, and nowhere in those negotiations, Kate, not one time was in that discussion a payment of any kind to get our Americans back. The negotiation process that led to getting those citizens back had no discussion and talk about the payment of money in any sum or in any form or fashion. But when the lines all came together right there in January, in a very short 24-hour or so period, it would have been foolish, we believe, for us not to hold on just a little bit longer to make sure that we had the right leverage to get those Americans out. That was the priority.
John, a different topic, but happening today. Word now, pretty strange, but word now that these Olympic swimmers, that they made up that story about being robbed by gunpoint. There's reports that two of them, including Ryan Lochte, have been indicted. What's the State Department's reaction to this?
Well, we're watching the press reports just like you. We're watching the developments. I'm afraid that due to privacy considerations, I'm not at liberty to discuss this case in any great detail. What I can tell you, though, broadly speaking, is that in Rio, just like other places around the world, we do have consular officers, State Department employees who are trained and equipped and ready to provide consular advice and assistance to Americans in need. But I'm really not at liberty to go into more of this, particularly since it's an ongoing case.
Not on the details, but on this, Brazilian officials there are asking for an apology. Should Ryan Lochte and the others offer one?
That's really not for me to say one way or the other. That's something for the parties involved in this to discuss and to determine on their own. I don't think we wouldn't be taking a position on that.
A strange situation, an unusual situation to say the very least. John Kirby, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.